Hey guys, my name is Anthony, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you the second installment of my Hotlap Face-Off series, which is a series designed to help improve you guys and improve myself at F1 2020, where basically I'll be comparing some of your laps with some of my laps and seeing where you guys or where I can make up time depending on the results of the Hotlap. So today we've got a guy named T, so I wanted to thank T for basically supplying some of the footage that we're going to be using in this episode. So let's get straight into it. So for this video I'm going to take a different approach than I did in the first one, where I'm basically just going to talk about some of the things that I feel he can improve on whilst I have some of his footage playing in the background, and then I will be sort of comparing that to one of my laps to just showcase exactly where I feel he could be making up some more time on specific corners. But for this one I'm mainly going to be talking about general advice, because I feel as if he improves some of the stuff that I saw in his footage just in general, that he will not only find time in Bahrain, but he will find time on every single track in the game. So I'm going to go based off sort of priority here, and the first one is his lines throughout the corners can be improved. I just don't feel as if he was turning into some of the corners soon enough. I feel that he was taking some of the things that he maybe watched from some of my other videos or maybe some of other people's videos and applying them to every corner. So for example, going into turn 1, you can see he just turns a little bit too late here. I think what he was trying to do was take a late apex approach to this corner, which for corners like this is not necessary because it's followed by another corner. You really want to take late apex approaches to corners when that corner is followed by a long straight. This corner is not followed by a long straight, it's followed by another corner. So you want to sort of prioritize corner 2 or turn 2 rather than turn 1, so you can afford to turn a little bit sooner into the corner than you did. And you actually showed me in another lap that you sent over as well that you did turn in a little bit sooner, and just by doing that one thing you ended up finding about half a second worth of time just by doing that over the first 2 corners, by prioritizing the second corner instead of the first one. So yeah, when it comes to how you approach each individual corner, I definitely recommend just continuing to watch some hot laps from either myself or from some other guys who are even quicker than me, and just sort of trying to practice the same lines that they're doing, you know, start turning into specific corners the same way that they do, because sometimes, you know, different corners, they require a different strategy going into them. And as you can see, I think turn 10, I believe, he just turned in way too late, and I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe he just generally messed up, but you know, you just want to be turning in a lot sooner than he did. And another thing when it comes to how you approach each individual corner, for some of the corners I definitely feel as if on entry you can be a little bit wider on the track just to give yourself a little bit more of a wider line, which will in turn find you more time. For example, turn 3, I believe, you can afford to put your car a little bit more on the outside of the track. This just helps you get a better line throughout the corner. It basically means that you're not really turning as much, even though you are still technically turning, you're not turning as much, which means you can carry a little bit more apex speed, which will allow you to just gain general time throughout the corner. So moving on to the second one, you're braking a little bit too early going into some of the corners. For example, turn 1, you broke where the curb starts, which is a little bit too early going into that corner. And what that means is if you brake too early, it means that the car is going to be too slow going into the apex, which means that you might even need to put your foot on the throttle a little bit just so that you can actually gain some of that speed. And what that does is it sort of just messes up the rhythm of the car, because at first it's braking, so the nose is sort of turned in towards the ground. And yeah, F1 2020 is not as realistic, but basically the basic premise of how trail braking works still applies to this game. So you know, the car is sort of pointed its nose towards the ground, and then basically it shoots up again because you're applying throttle just to get the car's minimum speed around the corner a little bit higher so that you can actually make the corner. So in the second lap you did pretty well, you broke a little bit later, and what that did is it allowed you to get a better line through, it allowed you to carry more speed through the corner, and as I said, that basically allowed you to gain half a second in just the first 2 corners alone. Yeah, you did go a little bit wide on the second lap, but again, the premise is still there. You gained half a second just by doing those little changes. So when it comes to some of the corners, you want to brake a little bit later than you're braking. Again, that just requires you watching some track guides from myself or maybe some hot laps from some other drivers and just seeing where they're braking, and then try to brake as late as you possibly can when it comes to those certain corners. For example, going into turn 3 at Bahrain on your second lap, you broke pretty much where you should be, which is on the 100-meter board. You had the car a little bit more on the outside of the track, which gave you a better line and gave you more speed going into the corner, and because of that, by just turn 3 on the second lap, you were already a second up on the time that you had did in the first lap. So just by doing some of those small things, you were able to find over a second actually in just the first couple of corners. So make sure that you continue to watch the hot laps, continue to watch the track guides, and keep doing what you have been doing on the second lap, which is basically braking as late as you possibly can, going out wide to give yourself a better line through the corner, which will again help you carry a little bit more speed throughout the corner, which will gain you more time. And then going into the last thing I think that you were doing wrong on this sort of lap that you were showcasing is you were using too high of a gear going into certain corners. Going into the end of sector 1, beginning of sector 2, not only was your line really compromising your lap time there, but so was your gear choice. I believe you were in 6th gear going into that corner, which just doesn't really allow you to rotate the car the way that the car really needs to rotate through those certain corners. If you look at my lap in that corner, I actually choose to go in 4th gear, and that again just allows me to get the car rotated through the corner the way that I want to get the car rotated through the corner. That corner you don't really want to ride the curbs, because if you're riding the curbs you're losing speed, which for fast flowing corners like that, it means that you end up losing quite a significant amount of time compared to people who don't ride those curbs. For example, like how on my lap you don't see me touch those curbs, and I just keep the minimum speed throughout those corners pretty high, which means if you was compare my time to your time through there, you know, I'm probably gaining at least a couple of tenths on you just through those fast couple of corners. And going into turn 10, you were just using too high of a gear going into that corner. It's a very low speed corner, so you want to be in 1st gear just so that you can get the car slowed down and also rotate it through the corner the way you need to. You were using 4th gear going into the apex, which means that, you know, the car wasn't able to turn in as much, which as you can see from doing that, you ended up going a little bit wide and you went onto the curb. And going onto the curbs, especially curbs like that, it doesn't give you as much traction as being on the tarmac itself, which means that you're not able to get the power down as quickly, which means that you end up losing time on the exit. So for that corner, by the time that you're reaching the apex, you want to already be in either 2nd gear max or at least 1st gear, just to get the car into the corner and be able to stay on the tarmac so that you can apply the throttle quicker, which then gives you better exit speed. So I hope that this was helpful not only to T but some of you guys who are also struggling to get lap times in. I'd highly recommend that what you do is you record your footage, you watch over your footage, and you sort of compare it to other people's just to see exactly where you can make up time. It's the best way in my opinion to make up time, and I actually wish that I had did more of this when I was sort of in you guys' position as well, where I was sort of learning how to go through the tracks properly and stuff like that. So I'm going to end the video here. If you liked this style of video and you want to see more, or if you even want to take part, then make sure to hit the like button and stick around by subscribing to the channel. I will have my email in the description below, so that if you do want to take part, all you need to do is send me an email. There will be a subject line that you can use there, which is basically Hotlap face-off submission. That will instantly allow me to know that you're emailing me about wanting to take part in this. So I'll see you guys in the next video.